So please welcome Aleksandar Svetski to the stage for his talk, Beauty Will Save the World. Alex, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joe. All right, now I've got to actually deliver on my insults. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm just going to wait for a second for the slide for the presentation to come up. But the talk of today's, or my presentation today is going to be called Beauty Will Save the World. And I assume the presentation is going to pop up, guys, at some point. Oh, actually, we can see it. For those in the back, I can't see it on here, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to think about my presentation. So my favorite quote from Nietzsche is, if you crush a cockroach, you're a hero. But if you crush a butterfly, you're a villain. Morality has aesthetic standards. And the reason why it's my favorite saying is because the theologian is going to be angry about it. The moralist will tell you that it's unfair. The hippie will tell you that it's cruel. The moral relativist will tell you that it's wrong on subjective grounds. But, in fact, actually, everything, all of your native sensibilities, all of your civilized training will even tell you that it's unfair. But when push comes to shove and you see the cockroach, you're going to crush it or praise the person who does. Whereas, if you see someone do the same to a butterfly, you're going to be immediately enraged by it. You won't even know why you're enraged. It's just going to make you angry. And these kind of visceral truths, they point to something, or these kind of visceral reactions point to something much deeper and much truer. I like to think of them as instincts. You know, instincts, Nietzsche calls instincts the things, the experiences that we've developed over the centuries, over the millennia, that become ingrained in our bodies. So they transcend, or they go deeper than the intellect. They're physio-psychologically true. And that is because instinct is in the blood, in the body, and in the DNA, and it can't lie. Now, one of these truths is beauty. Beauty is simultaneously objective and subjective. And it's one of the only things in the world, other than maybe truth, that has this quality. In fact, beauty is full of many such paradoxes. One of my favorite authors, Ian McGilchrist, he wrote a book called The Master and His Emissary. He calls beauty simultaneously symmetrical and asymmetrical, or symmetrically asymmetrical. Beauty is also powerful, and it is fragile. Beauty is dangerous, and it is nurturing. Beauty is natural, and it's also man-made. Beauty is everlasting, and it's also fleeting. Beauty is something that you recognize. It's not something that you think, right? Nobody can tell you something is beautiful. It's just something that you feel, right? So it goes beyond it transcends the rational. But we can also later rationalize it. And what's interesting, the opposite of beauty, which is ugliness, has the same visceral characteristics. So when you see it, you just notice it. It's repugnant, it hurts you. And if you put it side by side, you know instinctually what's beautiful and what's ugly. Like whether it's a Calvin Klein ad, whether it's architecture, whether it's a family versus whatever the fuck that is on the left, whether it's statues, sculptures, and artwork, whether it's a woman or versus whatever the other thing is, and, or another woman, whatever. So the interesting thing about these last two slides is that it points to one of the more practical truths about beauty, or the practical elements or qualities of beauty, which is a signal for health and fertility, right? Life is that which wants to continue. Life wants to produce, life wants to create, and it cannot do so in an environment that is dead or barren. So this is why beauty is so important. Like it's one of the practical qualities, as I said, it signals something. And people, like, it's really interesting. If you want to know if someone is psychologically sound, you give them a photo like this and you ask them what's more beautiful, right? And someone who's psychologically sound, whether they're a man or woman, they'll know what's beautiful out of these two. Which leads me to one of my favorite topics of all, which is physiognomy. Beauty permeates everything. Like, it's in our thoughts, our emotions, and our physical body. And beauty is also, so beauty is not only on the inside, but it's also on the outside. You often hear people say it the other way around, which is false. And I'd like to read this little excerpt here from Roald Dahl, who was a children's author back when children's books were still normal, before they went woke. And he says here, if a person has ugly thoughts, it begins to show on the face. And when that person has ugly thoughts every day, every week, every year, the face gets uglier and uglier and uglier until it gets so ugly you can hardly bear it. And then the opposite is also true for people who think beautiful thoughts and have a beautiful presence inside. And over here on the right, we have a real-world example of that. Jacinta Ardern, who was the Prime Minister of New Zealand, she's 43, by the way, her ugly thoughts, like she literally locked down 5 million people, she forced them to get jabbed, went all psycho on everybody, and she literally projected that into her face, into her physiognomy. Now, of course, the midwits will say, no, physiognomy is not real. And, they'll also screech and tell you that somehow lockdowns can prevent viruses. But, as usual, the midwits are wrong and they're ugly as well. So, the truth is, like our friend George Orwell says, that, at 50, everyone gets the face they deserve. Beauty is truth. If the highest good was the peak of like a divine mountain, the two slopes that lead to that peak are beauty and truth. And funny enough, beauty and truth are the two things that most often get co-opted. Economics is extremely important, right? But it forms the base of the pyramid. It forms the base of this mountain of goodness. And that's where the subjective materialist paradigm exists. And it's extremely important, but economics doesn't transcend to something higher. And this is really important. I think it's a massive lesson for Bitcoiners to start to adopt. And it's why people like this, Tim Urban, who wrote quite a popular blog called Wait But Why, he's completely wrong. He's a classic midwit who thinks that, beauty is entirely subjective. No, it's not. Beauty is literally in the fundamental structure of the universe, right? You look at fractals, you look at musical octaves, you look at pi and the golden ratio, which you can see here. You look at numbers. These very patterns underpin the universe. And, if you look at the name, the word of the universe, universe means one song. Like, it is musical, it is melodic, it is all tied in and integrated. So beauty makes up the very substance of this thing. Beauty is powerful, and power is beautiful. Nature is full of power. That's why it is also extraordinarily beautiful. And power is a really dirty word in the Bitcoin space. I've never understood how Bitcoiners can say in literally the same sentence, proof of work bad, power evil. It's like these two things are both basically the same. They are the capacity to channel energy. Like, work is measured in joules and power is measured in joules over time. Like, these things are so deeply entwined and deeply interrelated. And we look at power erroneously as, it must be bad, it's evil. Power is literally vitality and life. And I want to make this point clear, because it's not that power corrupts, but it's that power corrupts the weak, or that the weak can be corrupted by power and can attain it, or that the corrupt can attain power. And this is a really important paradigmatic mental shift that we must all make. And the way you kind of think about it is like, power is like technology, it's agnostic. You put it in the hands of a sadist, someone will want to step on people that are below them and bring down those that are more beautiful. Whereas you put power in the hands of those who are responsible, who are strong, who are vital, who are beautiful, they will do something with it, like our friend Bukele in El Salvador. He has taken that, he's literally transformed the entire country, and he's looking to make it more beautiful. And we know this, like it's in our stories, right? Like the archetypical stories that we're attracted to. Lord of the Rings has a cult following for a reason. It's because the uglies are the trolls and the orcs and the goblins, whereas the beautiful are the good, the humans, the elves, etc. So I'd like to put forth a new or a better definition of evil, which to me is that which wants to defile and destroy the beautiful. And you see it all around the world today, that wants to bring it down and destroy it. And this is the definition that these people don't want you to know. They want you to believe that beauty and power are somehow bad, so that you can leave a vacuum for them to fill, right? And when you leave that vacuum, these parasites come in and they suck from the world. So they use these guilt trips to make you feel like what you're doing is wrong, like you claiming power and attaining power and building and developing and creating something beautiful is wrong. Because this is ultimately what they're afraid of. They're ultimately afraid of you being powerful, you being strong, so they feed you the lie, they tell you that power corrupts, they tell you that beauty is wrong, they tell you all this bullshit, and you leave a vacuum for them. Because make no mistake about it, this is the real fight. I used to literally think that it was communism versus capitalism. I even wrote a bloody book about it. What I've come to realize, though, is that the actual truth is that it's beauty versus communism. That's the real fight of our century. So what the hell does this have to do with Bitcoin in Prague? You might be thinking, like, what's this maniac on about? Well, as my friends here would say, everything. Prague is the last, or one of the last bastions of beauty in this great continent of Europe. And in my opinion, Bitcoin is one of the only ways to revive beauty, not only here, but all around the world. Because beauty is the ultimate low time preference pursuit. I don't care if you're building a family and raising children, whether you're building an aesthetic body, whether you're building a product, a business, a service, a piece of art, or a 300-year cathedral, whether it's the mountains that have emerged over tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years, whether it's the planet that we're literally all on today. Beauty takes time, whereas ugliness, whether it's dropping a bomb on someone and chopping off your balls, literally takes a second, right? You can't go back. So if we can build a monetary standard that rewards low time preference, that rewards patience, naturally, not by some political decree because somebody said so, but because by its very nature, you get three interesting benefits. You get the localization of economic consequence, which means you remove this whole socialization, make somebody else pay for your fuck-ups. That rewards good behavior and it punishes bad. You increase the signal in the system, so that means the system is more adaptable. And therefore, the map fits better to the territory, which in other words says that it is more natural and organic. That's the whole point of what you get from such a framework. And what do we do when we have more time? We build more beautiful things. So I'd like to put forth a new definition for Bitcoin. It's been called everything from, banking the unbanked to yoga to fuck you money to technology, all this sort of stuff. I'd like to put forward this idea that Bitcoin is a framework for excellence that is much harder for the ugly, the corrupt, and the stupid to take advantage of. And therefore, it becomes a framework for excellence and beauty. Because I believe, like Dostoevsky, like Aleksandar Solzhenitsyn, like Nietzsche, like Aristotle, like Plato, like all the greats have thought that beauty will save the world. Which is why I spent the last 2 years writing this book, The Bushido of Bitcoin, which is not really a Bitcoin book. It's a book about virtue. It's a book about the human spirit. It's a book about what we will do when the Bitcoin standard comes. Because on a fiat standard, the incentive is to lie, cheat, steal, get into political games, be a parasite and suck from the system. But when you have a framework for excellence and a framework for beauty, how must you show up? Who must you be? And I believe those are the virtues we're going to need to adopt. They're going to come from the the cultures and the civilizations that were built in the past and will be able to project that forward. So things like courage and compassion and excellence and responsibility and integrity, loyalty, self-control. So I don't have enough time to go through all of these here, obviously. Like in the book, I look at them etymologically, historically, psychologically, philosophically, and all of that. But I want to leave you with this sort of idea of the purpose of life. I was chatting with some young Italian guys yesterday, and we were talking about, like, why would someone go and build a cathedral and spend all this money in a deflationary system? I said, why? Because it's fucking beautiful, and there's something inside you that compels you if you're alive, if you are a vital creature. Otherwise, we're always fighting with entropy, and everything starts to descend. So I believe we're at a very, 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 very important time in human history. We're literally at the weak men stage of the cycle. And it is our job, it is our duty, it is our responsibility to carry the world through this. Because, there's people out there who think you will own nothing and be happy, but it's our job to say, fuck you. And it is our job to say no to that. And I believe Bitcoin really is the first step towards making the world more beautiful. So that being said, I want to leave you all with a short trailer on the book, which I promise is going to make you it will blow your mind. It is something I want you to feel what the book is going to be about. Alongside that, I want to give you all an opportunity to get it before the rest of the world does. So if you want to take a photo of this, so you have the QR codes, and then sit back, relax, and enjoy the trailer of the Bushido of Bitcoin. Thank you, everyone.